Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. Have you ever heard a family story that just sounds a little too good to be true? Maybe someone in your family talked about a Cherokee princess in the family tree, or maybe a great-aunt swore that your line runs back to kings and queens in Europe. These are two of the most popular legends in genealogy, and they've been told so many times that they almost start to feel like fact. Here's the truth. Native tribes didn't have princesses, and most families don't secretly lead back to royalty. Still, these stories stick around because they're exciting, a little glamorous, and they give us a sense of pride. That doesn't mean your family history isn't fascinating. It just means the real story might be very different than the legend. And honestly, that's where the fun begins. So let's look at where these myths came from, why they lasted so long, and how you can check the facts for yourself. The Cherokee princess tale is everywhere. Ask around, and you'll find dozens of families who claim one. But there's a big problem with that. Native tribes didn't have kings and queens, so there were no princesses. The idea of a princess comes from European storytelling. Outsiders looked at native leadership systems and tried to force them into a European mold. A chief's daughter wasn't a princess, she was simply a member of a respected family. So why did families keep passing the story along? Part of it was romantic storytelling. In the 1800s, Americans loved to imagine the frontier in a dramatic romantic way, and turning a native ancestor into a princess added flair. Oral tradition played a role too. A vague memory like, "we had Cherokee ancestors," grew larger with each retelling until one day it became a princess. And sometimes it was social appeal. Claiming native ancestry gave families a unique identity, something exotic to set them apart. Take one real example. The Smith family of Kentucky told generations of children that their great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee princess. But when researchers dug into the records, they discovered she was the daughter of German immigrants with no native ancestry at all. The story actually came from a neighbor's connection with local tribes. Over the years, the neighbor's story blended into the Smith family's memory, and the tale hardened into fact. Now let's turn to the other legend, the royal ancestor. This one is just as common. Maybe someone in your family claimed descent from a duke, an earl, or even a king or queen. In truth, there are genuine cases of royal descent, but they're far rarer than family lore suggests. Why does this story persist? Because it feels prestigious. Tying your family to nobility makes the story feel important. In the 19th century, some so-called family historians even exaggerated royal ties to sell books. And then there's mistaken identity. A wealthy farmer or a mayor might, generations later, be remembered as noble. The Johnson family of Ohio had just such a tale. They believed they were descended from French royalty because their surname matched a noble French line. But records showed their ancestor was a farmer in Alsace. The leap from a shared surname to noble blood was simply a mistake. Yet the story stayed alive because it sounded grand. These myths didn't survive on family storytelling alone. Popular culture kept them alive. In the 1800s, dime novels and Wild West shows turned native women into princesses for dramatic effect. Around the same time, Victorian genealogy books exaggerated royal connections to attract buyers. Hollywood carried both myths forward, feeding them into the American imagination. By the time these stories reached your grandmother's kitchen table, they'd already been reinforced by decades of cultural repetition. But what do the records actually show? When you really dig in, the glamorous stories often unravel. Instead of a Cherokee princess, you might find a woman who lived near native communities or married into a native family. Instead of a king, you might find a shoemaker, a farmer, or a craftsman with the same surname as nobility. And far from being a letdown, this can be even more meaningful. These ancestors survived wars, migration, and hardship. They built their lives out of sweat and sacrifice, not crowns and titles. And those stories are every bit as important, maybe more so, than royal myths. So how do you check these family legends? DNA testing can help in some cases. Autosomal DNA might reveal native heritage within the last 5 to 7 generations, though tiny percentages can come from population overlap, not direct descent. For royal ancestry, DNA usually won't help. You need documented lineages to trace that. Tribal records are crucial if you suspect Cherokee ancestry. The Dawes rolls taken between 1898 and 1914 are essential. If your ancestor isn't on those lists, proving tribal enrollment becomes very difficult. Every tribe has its own criteria for recognition. Then there are vital and church records. Marriage, baptism, and burial entries often reveal ethnic origins. Sometimes a simple parish record can settle a centuries-old question. For noble and royal families, published genealogies like Burke's Peerage provide reliable guides. If your supposed royal ancestor isn't in those sources, the connection probably comes from wishful thinking. Why do these myths stick around? Because they're about more than facts. They're about identity. A Cherokee princess in your tree makes your family sound unique. A king or queen in the background makes you feel part of something grand. The problem is, these myths can overshadow the real stories waiting to be discovered. And here's the truth. Crowns and titles don't make an ancestor important. What matters is the life they lived and the struggles they overcame. Your ancestors farmed, built homes, crossed oceans, raised children, fought in wars, and survived illnesses. They may not have ruled a kingdom, but they left behind something far more lasting, the resilience that carried your family forward. So here's the real story. The Cherokee princess and royal ancestor myths are entertaining, but they rarely stand up to records. What you'll usually uncover instead are the true stories of ordinary people, mothers and fathers, farmers and immigrants who lived extraordinary lives without tiaras or thrones. The next time you hear one of these family legends, don't dismiss it. Write it down, then dig deeper. Use DNA results, passenger lists, tribal rolls, and published genealogies to test what's true. Chances are the truth will surprise you, and when it does, it will connect you more deeply to the real people in your past. To find Ancestor you're stuck on, I'd love to hear about it. Just head over to ancestralfindings.com and click on Contact to send me a message. While you're there, take advantage of our free weekly genealogy lookups. Explore thousands of articles and enjoy hundreds of podcast episodes. We've been helping family history researchers since 1995. And if you're looking for even more, check out our Genealogy Gold Q&A series over on Patreon. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy searching.